Hi guys, I promised you to post a longer video about Belgorod, and here it is. Let's try to understand what happened there. I'd like to remind you that I'm not a political analyst, I'm a journalist and a linguist, so I will concentrate on the Russian propaganda narratives about Belgorod and how those narratives can develop in the next future. And also I will talk about the difference in the perception of those events between Ukrainians and the anti-war Russians. You might think that it should have been the same, but it was not. So let's start. First of all, to be honest, it's quite difficult to understand what exactly was going on there. So I wouldn't talk much about the details because I don't want to speculate on them and accidentally give you the wrong information, I want to quote Ilya Ber, the founder of the first Russian fact-checking media, Proverено, which literally means checked. In his Facebook post about the events in Belgorod, he says, "There is simply no reliable information that could make it possible to understand what was happening there, at least approximately realistically, and there won't be in the next future. The only thing we know for sure is the fact that a part of Russian nuclear weapons was stored there before the war, and the fact that some armed people with some military equipment, including tanks, at least one, crossed the border of the Belgorod region from the Kharkiv region." End of quote. And I will remind you that it was Ilya Ber, the founder of the fact-checking media Provereno. You know that two Ukrainian-backed volunteer groups claimed responsibility for the raid in Belgorod, the RVC and the Freedom of Russia Legion. In Ukraine, people know them well because these are groups of Russians fighting on Ukraine's side. The famous former Russian but now Ukrainian TV host Yevgeny Kiselyov wrote on his Facebook page that he knows one of those people in person, Ilya Bogdanov, the former owner of a small Korean restaurant in Kyiv. Bogdanov used to serve in the Federal Security Service, FSB. But after the annexation of Crimea, he supported Ukraine and he ended up moving there. The Ukrainian experts who I've talked to are saying that in Ukraine they took everything that happened in Belgorod seriously, meaning they didn't doubt that they were the current or former Russian citizens who planned and organized the raid. The version that Kremlin staged that it was a provocation, is not a mainstream version at all in Ukrainian society. I want to underline that. Moreover, the experts I talked to say that they noticed the signs of confusion of the Russian authorities and Russian propaganda. How was that confusion expressed? First of all, during 24 hours after those groups entered the Belgorod region, there was no reaction of Siloviki, of FSB, not at all. And after that, they sent the general from the front line. Propaganda was silent as well, at least half of the day. But then when it became obvious that, you can't hide it anymore, they started telling the news from Belgorod, but they didn't have a united concept of what to say. After all, they just said that they finished the special operation and the sabotage groups had been liquidated. That was a quote. But now, what can Russian propaganda tell people inside Russia, and how is it going to develop the narratives? Most likely they will try to use this situation to convince people in need of additional mobilization. Russian society, even the pro-war part of it, is obviously tired of the war. They don't understand the plan. They don't understand the purposes. They are lost in the propaganda narratives that change. People keep dying and so on. So As a dictator who started the war, you need something to sell people the idea of further mobilization, right? And here Putin could use his old narrative about the great patriotic war. Using the situation in Belgorod, they can say, look, our motherland is in real danger. We need to protect it. It's not some abstract NATO danger they are selling people. It's a real situation. People in Belgorod live almost like at the front line now, and they are really scared from what I know. Also, the repression in Russia, unfortunately, will intensify in the next future because of that. For Ukraine, the situation is actually good from the military point of view because they will take people from the front line and will send them to protect Russia's regions because they might be more raids like that. There might be more raids. Although, of course, Russia can reply to that raid with more missile attacks on Ukraine, and we saw it today in Dnipro, where they attacked the residential psychiatric facility. There is one more interesting moment I'd like to point out and share with you. As I have already said, the attitude toward what happened differs between Ukrainian society and anti-war Russian society. So liberal Russians have been very cautious with news about Belgorod. They didn't want to comment on it very much. Some of them were saying it looked very suspicious and we don't really know what happened. In other words, they don't want to associate themselves with the groups that are ready to fight against Putin's regime with weapons in hand. Whoever those people are, they don't like the idea itself. And that is what in Ukraine they see as Russia's problem. Even liberal anti-war people, not all of them, of course, want to keep their peaceful life. They want their anti-war fight to be convenient, you know, and they see Ukraine as a tool that could help them to get rid of Putin, if you know what I mean. So anyway, this Belgorod case showed us many important things about propaganda and its narratives, about Kremlin, and about different parts of the society. I'm Ksenia Turkova. Don't forget to like and subscribe.